Hello everyone, my name is Ian, lead developer of Gamble Tower, and today I finally came back to speak a little bit about wishlists and refunds. Now, when speaking about wishlists, it's very important to take a look at this page that we have here, wishes by day. There's some filters here. We can filter per year, we can filter per custom.
Let me see if I can filter from the start date of 2021, which I think is when we got the page for the first time. So let's get, I don't know, maybe, I think it was in March or maybe April, I don't remember now. And let's see if we can
use such a filter. Looks like we can. So, we can see here all the wish lists that we ever had in Gamble Tower, and that's a pretty cool thing. If you don't know what wish lists are about, they're basically when you go to a store page, to the Steam page for a game that you really want, but you are thinking about waiting for a deal, for a sale, for a festival, and you kind of want to sort of follow the deals that this game has. You can add it to your wish list. So basically, you get notified by email when your wish list get released or are on sale. So they have two uses. This is for a released game. I add it to my wish list. It goes up here to my wish list of games. And here I can see all the games that I have in my wish list. And as soon as it gets discounted, I get an email. So I got email for late shift plenty of times already. As well as you get a notification on your Steam. Another utility for wishlists are for upcoming games. So for instance, let's suppose that I really like Builderment. I did not release yet. I can also add this game into my wishlist, and after adding it to my wishlist, as soon as it gets released, I will be notified on the day that it's released. That's how wishlists work. And now, why are they so relevant? Because they basically, if you didn't launch your game yet, wishlists are a way for you to kind of understand the interest that people have in your game. If your game is interesting enough to potential buyers. So that's a very valuable tool for developers. Now, if we go back to Gamble Tower, those are the wish lists that Gamble Tower received from approximately its Steam page release to its final actual release. So as you can see, there are peaks, and those peaks are usually, for instance, this peak was when Retromation played the game and was during the Steam Next Fest as well. Basically, it was shown on Steam Next Fest. There we knew that festivals gave a ton of wish lists. So I think that we got almost 1,000 wishlists on the Steam Next Fest. I don't know if it was that much, but I think at least 500 wishlists were acquired during the Steam Next Fest. As you can see, the usual rhythm is getting like 1, 2. If you are lucky, on certain moments, there's gonna be a peak of 5, maybe a peak of, on your very release of your page, maybe you're gonna get a little bit more. Those other peaks are on other festivals that we took part on, so this is on another Steam Next Fest. So since there wasn't really the rule of like you can only take part on one festival, we managed to actually put Gamble Tower into 2. So as you can see, the moment where you are going to get more wishlists is certainly on your launch. So basically on your launch, there's gonna be a huge peak of wishlists that you're gonna get, mainly because, well, your game is now released, you're gonna get a huge visibility boost, and as such, people know that your game now exists and is now released, and now they can actually buy it. Now, for the actual concrete relevance of this, we have those numbers down here, which indicate both all the wishlist additions that we had for Gamble Tower. So that was the total wishlist additions. During its life cycle, it got 514 wishlist deletions. That means that of all those 3,523 wishlist additions, basically only around 3,000 remains. And we also have the wishlist purchases and activations, and this is the most important part, because here you can see what we call a conversion rate. Wishlist conversion rate. So why is that important to us? Basically because that's wish lists, which are just an abstract concept, actually converting into sales, right? So if we take a look at all the sales that Gamble Tower had, so we had in total 350 sales, right? Now on Steam, from all those sales, we know that 171 sales, almost half of all those sales, are from wishlists. And that's a very interesting thing, because you start to see that if it wasn't for all those festivals that we took part on, if it wasn't for the videos that people made about the game, we would sell half of what we currently sold. If we go to Google and search for wishlist conversion rate, we find a lot of different articles and posts related to wishlists and how they convert. But like for us, it was around 6% of conversion rate so far. And for me, that's amazing. Like, that's a big deal. However, it's very important to understand that on the very beginning of the release, if we get like a little time ago, the wishlist purchases and activations were significantly lower. I think it was much closer to 1%. And that goes into another problem, sort of, is that people expect that their wish list, and I certainly looked at that and saw, hey, that's not the number that people said that was going to happen. Because the conversion rate is something that changes all the time. Other devs sometimes expect that their wish list will instantly convert in the first week like 10% into sales. And that's a number that was frequently said many times ago. Let me see if I find an article. So, it really depends on your game. For example, some games manage to convert like 13% on their first week. Some people manage to convert much less. As you can see here, some people say equivalent to 10 to 20% of your launch day net wish list number. So, I think it heavily depends on how many wish lists you got, right? And that's sort of another sort of bias, because if you got a lot of wish lists, people really like your game. Therefore, they're much more. It's much more possible that they are going to buy it on your launch day or your launch week. While if you didn't get a lot of wish lists to begin with, people may not be so interested in your game at all. Therefore, for Gamble Tower, like, we got only, I think before release, we got around half of the current wishlist that we currently have. So if right now we got 2,837 wishlists, on the release date, I think we had like maybe 1,500 wishlists, something like that. So what I'm saying is just take all that with a big grain of salt, right? You will need to see for yourself what the numbers really are for you. Now, going into another topic, we have things such as wishlist deletions and also refunds. Now, if you ask me, Ian, why do people delete your game from wishlist? Man, there can be so many reasons, and I just cannot explain that to you because I don't know either. Maybe it's because they're not interested in the game any longer. Maybe it's because the game is too expensive for them. Maybe it's because the game looks weird now that it's released. Maybe because people don't remember wishlisting it. Maybe because they wishlist during festivals and there were so many other games that they now preferred. And like, there's a lot of different reasons why wish lists can be deleted, and also purchases. As far as I know, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that purchases also delete the game from the wish list internally on the Steam site. So if you see here, like, the amount of wish lists that have been deleted is like 500, but that's on the entire lifetime of the game. So there are many different reasons. Maybe people did not like the game in the end. Maybe people didn't like the fact that we removed the demo. So you just cannot know, and that's probably going to be normal. You are going to have lots of wishlists deleted from your game, especially if the game took so long to release, like ours. Game of Thrones took 2.5 years, and the festivals that they took part on were like on years prior. The first one was on 2021, the second one was in 2022, and it only released on basically near the end of 2023. That's something to consider. For refunds, we have some more data for refunds, and that's interesting. Now, I always take refunds with a grain of salt as well, because people might just not like your game, people might be sensitive to certain features not working how they would like it would work, or maybe just for bugs in general. And we are aware that Gamble Tower released on a pretty, not a broken state, but somewhat buggy. There were soft locks, there were some issues that happened during release. We were lucky that we didn't get any bad reviews so far, especially related to like bugs and things. But for refunds, we considered 17% of all units sold were refunded. So technically, if we would take this number into consideration, it's more of currently the amount of people that have Gamble Tower is 290 people that still have the game. But we can see details about refunds. If we click here and go into refund data, we have plenty of information of why it was returned, right? So we can see here on lifetime, there's a lot of issues, like for instance, performance issues, there's not hotkeys, there's not smoothness. So some people really prioritize that stuff. People find the game that's too difficult, people think that frame rate is too low on their PC. It crashes frequently, so for some people, like maybe it's some sort of issue. We can see notes if people left notes here. There might be other issues. Sometimes if there's a small issue that people experience and it wasn't the very beginning of the playthrough, they will refund the game because hey, this game is broken, I'm not gonna play it anymore. Even if we fix that on the very next hotfix. And people sometimes just don't want this type of game, people don't find it fun, people have different expectations when it comes to your game. Now, can you do something to avoid refunds? I think that for a first game, a high refund rate is sort of normal. Technically, for a first game, people say that it's normal to have a refund rate from 10% to 20%, but that's heavily dependent on your experience, on what you did before, on how you handle bugs and all that. For us internally, the game released with a lot of bugs, unfortunately. So if you release a game with less bugs, maybe this will have an influence. For future projects, I know that I want to release a much more stable game, less wonkiness. For Gamble Tower specifically, all that sort of crash bug, soft lock thing was something very difficult because we made a game using a prototype as its base, right? So we were really rushing on the beginning of the project to finish it like in 6 months, which is not reasonable. So we very quickly assembled a prototype and then decided, hey, let's build the entire game on the top of this prototype, which is very brittle. You know, anything that you do with this prototype may break lots of mechanics, and the core mechanics were prototyping. So it's sort of hard to fix that without like refactoring the entire game from scratch. So most of what we do is like patching up third-degree burns on the core systems of the game, which for the next project we now know we need a much more solid base to work on. Let's not rush the core, because the core is what will make the game stable to begin with. Alright, so that's it, folks. That's my thoughts on refunds, wishlists, and that's our own personal conversion rate. That's it, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. See you next time.